The Night Owl Show, Fridays at midnight on Channel 6.
I spend my life here. I've been spending my life here. In fact, the last 11 years I've been at Greenhaven. My case has gone through the courts 3 times. There's been 3 trials. I've been incarcerated for the last 13 years. I've claimed my innocence from day one. In addition to the 3 trials, I've taken 2 polygraph tests just recently at the request of the Lieutenant Governor. But essentially the issue, what happened was the case went to trial 3 times, and the reason it went to trial 3 times was because the jury, which is supposed to get the facts and make a determination based on fair and impartial facts, never got the full facts in the case. And therefore they weren't able to come to a proper verdict in the issue. A lot of the evidence that should have went before the jury never reached the jury because of rulings during the case, and that's what I've been appealing in the courts. Now, the case has been controversial in the courts. It's been I've got what they call a split court in the appellate division. 2 judges went one way, 3 judges went the other way. There was a dissenting opinion in the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals a few years before reversed and ordered a new trial. So it's been a controversial case all along.
Well, if someone had sat me down and said, you know, would you do this? I don't think I could have done that in one shot. It was the cumulative effect of knowing him for years and years, you know, seeing a person, how they react in many different kinds of situations, what their values are, what their beliefs are. It's because I knew that he was really a stranger in a very strange land of prison, and I could see over a long period of time that what motivated him and how he perceived his situation and how he dealt with it was really extraordinary. And in our friendship, we learned from each other a great deal. And even when I started feeling like, you know, he started to touch my heart a little bit, you know, and I resisted that. I just saw problems. With the red flag said, don't get involved. This is going to be a nightmare. There's all kinds of like little messages that say, you know, beware, you know, be careful. And so like I had a lot of turmoil inside me, you know, because he had a sentence of 25 years to life. No matter what does that say to a woman? You know, what are you going to do? Take a tent and pitch it outside a prison for 25 years? I mean, that's just not even a realistic choice. So obviously, the reality of the situation, I couldn't deal with. It was kind of over a period of time, I began to see that I wasn't really, you know, falling in love with somebody who was a prisoner. I was falling in love with someone who was a person, and he happened to be in that situation. And I saw that it wasn't a permanent situation, and I saw that. As time went by, I began to see all the different things about his trials. I mean, I think his 3rd trial in 1975 was a real eye-opener because it was such a circus. I mean, it was a melodrama. I mean, similar to soap operas in the afternoon, you know, in terms of various people strutting around and, you know, just getting, you know, calling shots that were reported in the media, you know, and it wasn't really a search for the truth. It was just something quite different. And I think at that point, I saw the underlying unfairness, and then that added to just knowing Gary as a person, knowing what I know about Ulster County and the criminal justice system here in Ulster County. All those facts fit together, and it added up to a picture that I had to come to terms with. And of course, when he passed the polygraph test, I wasn't surprised at all. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really affirmed what we really believed.
The prison really puts pressures on relationships, okay? I came up through the standard American chauvinist upbringing, all right? And I had preconceived images of what people were and what male and female roles were, etc. And, you know, the relationship with Peggy and the prison put so many pressures on it. That is, I had to trust. You know, when we made a commitment to each other, it was a heavy commitment to not to share ourselves with other people emotionally, and in Peggy's case, sexually.
He didn't know I was seeing other men, and I didn't mention it to him, but I figured that's something that I should be doing. He was a friend of mine, and you know, that was just my life on the outside. And one day I happened to let it slip, or he directly asked me. I think he probably pried it out of me, and he got very quiet, and he said, well, it's either him or me, and he got up and he left. And I didn't know that until later, that he went to complete anguish because he thought, now who am I? What do I have to offer her? I mean, here I am, I don't have anything. I'm a prisoner with a 25 to life sentence, and how can I expect her to make that kind of choice? And I went home, and what a question. I mean, what a thing to have put to you. And but I had to really come to terms with it at that point, and there was no question. That was who I wanted to be with.
Had you been married before?
Yeah,
ever?
Yeah.
So I guess from that experience you figured you could manage one where you you don't have to see him every day, right?
I didn't think about anything. It was just kind of like it was stepping into the unknown.
Yeah.
And
so was that an adventure?
Yeah, and it was kind of like he was also stepping into the unknown. And since New York has a state that doesn't permit prisoners with life sentences to marry, that was another obstacle we had to overcome, because we really did make a choice that we wanted to be together.
So you changed that law?
No, we're still working on it. We've been working on that for 2 years now.
How do you survive from the minute you get up in the morning to the end of the day?
Well, I begin with deep breathing exercises, and
yeah, you're in great shape.
Yeah, that puts you in touch with something very basic, breath, life, and what sustains life. And I just get into the breathing, the inhaling and the exhaling, and I begin the day with that slow pace and that recognition of, and then usually after the breath I recognize the light and the sun, and some of the things that cannot be, the walls do not affect. The sun will come up every morning. There will be fresh air, and there's some basic things in life like communication. So I get into these basic things, and then I begin the day. And it's usually a good, in any situation. It was an experience I had on death row, and I was coming out.
How long were you on death row, by the way?
3 years, around 33 months, around 33 months. And the first 18 months of the struggle there was like really, the environment was very hostile. I was angry because of the situation. I was on death row. It was this is before the case got reversed, and I got a new trial, but it was kind of the experience was one of madness. And the task before me was to make up some type of meaning in my life, right? And about 18 months into the struggle, I went out into the prison yard, and before that I mentioned I seen everything defined it in hostile terms, all right? Death row was there. They were keeping me there as a piece of meat, ready for the electric chair, and that's what their concern was, and my concern was about life and growth and straightening out the situation I was in. And I went out to the yard, and I used to curse people when I went out to the yard. And I didn't see too much, it was just a gravel floor. It was a 50-foot yard and with walls. And that's what I seen when I went out there. And one day I went out there and I sat down. A butterfly came over the wall, right? And landed on my toe or something. And, and I picked up on the butterfly, I looked at it, and then it like sort of flew over the wall. And when I lifted my head up and I seen the sun, and there was a nice blue sky, and then I started breathing, and I got the summer scent in my lungs, right? And then I started digging that there's a whole universe, and I'm connected to it. I'm in a very small world, but there is a world beyond this world, and there is a universe out there, and there's a miracle and mystery about life, and it was like being born. It was like an awareness that came about. I came into that yard for 18 months and didn't recognize something that was there all the time. And then all of a sudden I walked in this day and I recognized that, I had a choice of looking at the ground and the walls or the sky and the sun. And the choice was based on my perception of life. And now I can walk into situations that are negative, and I can find what's positive simply because my perception of life has changed. And it has a lot to do with my relationship with Peggy and people and the support, and it has a lot to do with trust, you know. And in a situation like this, you know, we talked about families before, and I got a new addition in the family. That is, I met Peggy while I was in prison, and you know, just a beautiful relationship developed. And when I say beautiful, I knew Peggy as a friend for years, and I respected her and admired her as a functional person and a friend before I even knew I was in love with her. And then, you know, I found out I was in love with her, you know, and during the prison experience. It was a nice revelation. It was beautiful, but I had like a multi-dimensional relationship. You know, I respected her on a lot of other levels other than just, you know, just a lover and a wife.
Well, we knew that if we went up to someone and said, "Can we get married?" they would say no. So Gary probably had the best kept secret that was in Greenhaven at that time, and that was on a regular family day picnic. They have several of them in the summer. He worked, and other prisoners volunteered to give up their passes for that particular day, and Gary did it very quietly. He told the people that needed to be told, and a lot of our friends and our family came that day, and no one was aware that it was going to happen. We were, of course, and when people saw that it was happening, they quietly, you know, gave their support to us.
Is this what happened to you?
Yeah, right there.
And somebody was able to erect a little tent and
Yeah, those were
bring
like
amplifiers or musical
yeah,
instruments?
Yeah.
Can you see that, Tobe?
Yeah, I was going to show it separately.
Yeah.
So that must have been a surprise to the administration of the prison.
Oh,
see
quite a
what's happening.
surprise,
And all
yes.
these people came as guests
Mhm.
to see Gary and you. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these are sheets that were sewn together, right here.
in the prison?
In the prison, yeah.
Oh.
Okay, getting back to the original incident that's the basis for the case, all right? I was in Auburn prison, and I was traveling from Auburn prison to a court appearance in Westchester, and I was with my co-defendant and another prisoner, and during the ride from Auburn prison to the court, the other prisoner, who had 29 years to do, he was about 30 years at the time, which meant he would probably be staying in prison for the rest of his life, made a break for freedom. And in the course of that, he shot and killed the deputy sheriff, and the deputy sheriff killed him. Now, the surviving deputy sheriff implicated myself and my co-defendant. In fact, he said that I did the shooting. So the basic issue here, the central issue here, is whether you believe me or you believe the deputy sheriff.
What was Gary in prison for at the time he was being transported down the thruway?
A gas station robbery. And
How
he-
long ago? How long before that?
about a year or so before the incident happened on the thruway.
Uh-huh.
He was 22. He's 36 now.
And what prison was he in, and where was he going?
He was going from Auburn to Westchester. He was being transported to be a witness in a court proceeding for his co-defendant, Charles Culhane. And that's why he was in the car. There was an appeal.
And he was going to go back to Auburn after,
Yeah,
after
yeah,
the testimony.
yeah. That's right. It was just a routine transport. There was no screen.
And his co-defendant was in the robbery.
Yes.
I see.
Yes.
And now
And
he also has a co-defendant in this present case.
that's the same co-defendant.
He was also in the car?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And the car had no screen between the front and back seat. Today, no prisoner in the state of New York is transported without a screen. And I think that this is the case that forced the state to make that ruling, because obviously this is a crime that could never happen now,
Mm-hmm.
and wouldn't have happened if there had been a screen in the car on that day.
So there were 2 deputies in front and 3 prisoners in the back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and no screen, and there was no, it was one of the deputies' private cars. There was no radio or anything like that for communication, and it was just an escape waiting to happen. An escape attempt waiting to happen.
And Auburn is up by Syracuse, right? So it's at least a 5-6 hour car drive.
That right, and the person that actually did the shooting was Robert Bowerman. He had a long history, which is in his prison record, which didn't get introduced into the court in evidence. It's the one thing that the judge would not let into court, of prior instances of trying to escape, grabbing officers' guns and things like that. So the jury never even heard this information. And so it was a matter of, who do you believe, the deputy sheriff that testified or Gary? Now, Gary has taken 2 polygraph tests, and the deputy sheriff refuses to take a polygraph. So we have, that basic, like inequity also. And Bowerman, along the trip, kept asking to stop. I have to go to the bathroom. And so they would pull on the side of the road. And they did this periodically. And it was one of those times when he asked, the deputies to pull over, that that he leaned over the seat and the gun was grabbed and the shooting started. And it happened very quickly. It was like bam, 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 and shots going all over and smoke inside a little car. It was very traumatic for everybody involved, and for the deputy sheriff who survived, it was his best friend. So, and like in the course of it, his glasses flew off. I mean, he was also driving the car at the same time.
And he's the one who shot Bowerman?
Yes.
The one who survived?
No, the other deputy sheriff shot Bowerman.
And
yeah.
Bowerman shot.
Yes. So there were 2 deaths in the car that day. And it was not only a tragedy that day, but it's been a continuing tragedy, for years.
Right now, we have moved out of the legal arena. It was a choice made by myself and Peggy, my wife. And we've moved out of the legal arena and we've moved into the political arena. And we're asking Governor Carey to commute my sentence or to release me through the process of executive clemency, which is well within his power. And it's important for me, for my wife, for my family. The support from the community is important. In fact, my release depends on it. Depends on whether people will write Governor Carey and urge his immediate action here. And the more support from individuals in the community and in groups in the community, the quicker this will happen. And of course, Peg and I are just committed to it. We're going to stay working and stay on top of it until the situation is resolved. But as I can't stress the importance enough for people to, if they're moved, to take that and write a letter and express that to the governor. And again, as I mentioned, it's a community activity. That's the way it's going to happen.
Well, this is, saying that you're not going to eat anymore until he's released could be terrifically dangerous for your health, couldn't it?
Well, I think it's uncomfortable, a little bit uncomfortable not to eat. It's a whole other way of living. I've never not eaten before. We're taking juices so that it's not a complete break from, some kind of nourishment. But it's a whole different feeling. I have to say that it is. But I guess compared to all the pain and suffering that we've had to undergo for so many years, it's really nothing compared to that. And when you think about, like, my stomach hurts a little bit, and it's uncomfortable. Ordinarily, I would kind of like go racing to the refrigerator, but no, it's kind of like you don't do that because you know that you're doing this for a real reason. And the reason is much more important than the temporary discomfort, and that's why it's not so bad, because we can't stand the other pain much more. That's much more significant, and it wasn't the decision that was taken lightly. We didn't. It was everyone made this decision voluntarily, and for a 71-year-old woman to make that decision, that's pretty strong. That's a statement on. Something that's really gotten out of control. This is really absurd because we have really done everything that anybody can humanly do. Our people have, we've gone out into the community, we've talked about the problem, we've gotten people concerned about it. Those people have gone to their representatives. The representatives have written, have investigated the matter and have gotten behind it. We've had clergymen come to our aid. We've had people in the prison system come. And after you do all of those things, and you do them again and again, at some point, when you get denied, you say that it just didn't work. What we're trying to do is getting Gary out. I mean, that's obviously the goal. There's other things that we're really talking about, and that it's not just us. It's happening to a lot of people, and what we have to do is bring it to everybody's awareness, and that's what we're doing, and that's what the fast is about.
Mama? Hey man, what are you doing? You're trying to start something. Yeah. Look, I had one cigarette when I come in this cell, right? That's what I'm smoking now. I mean, what's the big deal?
Well, you better smoke and slow, sucker. It's got to last you all night.